Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so we-
Good afternoon, Miss.
so welcome to the online parallel session at International Conference on Advance in Data Science, Learning, and Information System. ICADE 2026. So my name is Widya Febriani, and I'm honored to serve as moderator for this session. So today I have series remarkable presentation about the information system governance and technology adoption. So before we begin, allow me to format the session. Each presenter will have 10 minutes to deliver their presentation, and at the 8 minutes remainder will appear in 2 minutes left. So the time is up. So they will follow with 5 minutes for Q&A segment. So I kindly ask all attendant or audience can ask question to the Q&A session after each presentation. So if presenter is not ready to present with 1 minute of the scheduled time, we will process with the next presenter. So the presenter who have not ready will reschedule to presenter other. So please mute your microphone and unless permit to speak. Okay, so Miss Indah, are you there, Miss Indah? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Miss.
Okay, Miss Indah, and the second one is Mr. Egi. Okay, we meet again ya, Mr. Egi.
Okay, Miss. Yes.
Yeah, and then Miss Sayla.
Hi,
Okay.
Miss.
Yeah. Hi, and Mr. Alfian Syah Ariski Hidayat. Maybe not here. Oh yeah,
Yes.
yes, President. Okay. Okay. So we start our presentation. The first is Miss Indah ya, and the title about the design a continuous value optimization assessment tool for public sector IT governance. So the time is yours, Miss Indah.
Okay, thank you, Miss Widya. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Indah Fitri Amelia from Telkom University. Today, I present a paper titled Designing a Continuous Value Optimization Assessment Tool for Public Sector IT Governance. Okay, this study is about how we can give a public sector organization a practical tool to measure and improve the way they continuously optimize IT value. Not just implement IT, but make sure that IT keeps delivering real, measurable benefit over time. Okay, I will walk you through the introduction, then the method and result, and then discussion, and the last is conclusion and future research. Okay, let's begin with the introduction. Okay. Public sector organization today are under significant pressure from digital transformation. It is no longer enough for IT to just support operation. IT must create sustainable value for stakeholders. Okay, now the two most widely used frameworks for this are COBIT and ITIL. COBIT is used for strategic governance and control, while ITIL handles operational service management. But in practice, most organizations implement them separately. Okay, this is where the CityGov model comes in. CityGov was proposed as an integrated framework that combines the strength of both COBIT and ITIL. But here's the gap. Even with CityGov, its continuous value optimization domain remains a high level. There is no practical, ready-to-use instrument to assess how well organization is actually implementing it. Okay, The CityGov consists of 3 strategic domains and 7 operational elements. The 3 domains are strategic governance, service-oriented management, and continuous value optimization, which is the domain highlighted here. Okay, now why do we focus specifically on continuous value optimization? Because CVO is the sustainment layer of the entire governance model. It's the domain that ensure IT value is not just create once, but continuous measure, evaluate, and improvement over the time. Now, with the CVO domain, there are 2 core process area, feedback improvement and people culture. Okay, next. We use design science research or DSR for as our methodology. We choose DSR because the goal of this study is not to analyze a problem, it's to produce a practical artifact, the assessment instrument itself. Our process went through 4 stage. First, problem identification. We confirm that CVO domain of CityGov lacks an operational assessment instrument. Second, objective definition. We define the 2 core pillars to be measured. There is feedback improvement and people culture. The third, design and development. We map a CityGov element to COVID-19 and ITIL for practice and produce 15 assessment items with a scoring guide from 0 to 5 and 5 maturity level. Okay, then the last pilot testing. The instrument was reviewed by 4 experts in IT governance and IT service management, and it was validated as content valid, consistent, and aligned with both COVID-19 and ITIL V4. Okay, the resulting instrument has 15 items organized into 2 process area. The first process area is feedback improvement, contains item C1 to C8. Okay, this item asks, does the organization systematically measure, evaluate, and act on IT service performance? For example, is there a formal continual improvement process? Are KPI and trend data actually used to prioritize improvement? And then the second process area, people and culture, contains items C9 to C15. Okay, this asks, does the organizational culture actually enable sustainable value optimization? For example, do IT staff receive regular training, or is there a culture that support learning, experimentation, and accountability? Every item is mapped to specific COVID-19 objective and ITIL for practice. So the instrument is not standalone, it's explicitly grounded in the both framework. Okay, now let me show you the assessment tool. Okay, this is the assessment workbook. Respondent fill in their identity here, and then the guide show a staircase scoring from 0 to up to 5, and then this is the CVO worksheet. Okay, and then the last is summary. The summary automatically calculate average score per domain and maps the total to a maturity level. Okay. Each of the 15 statement is scored from 0 to 5 based on actual organizational evidence, the 6-point scale is intentionally designed to be inclusive. Score 0 ensure that practice irrelevant to an organization. Context don't unfairly penalize them. Okay, the average score across all items is then interpreted into 5 maturity level: initial, developing, define, manage, and optimize, using equal width interval on a 1 to 5 scale.
Okay, 2 minutes left ya.
Okay. So for the discussion, we discussed the 3 key dimensions. First, positioning against existing standard. Second, this tool is not a static audit checklist. It's a cyclical decision support instrument. And then the third, regarding validation, this study focus on content validity through expert judgment. Okay. Okay, conclusion. Okay, the main contribution is translating a previously high-level conceptual domain into a practical, evidence-based, and lightweight assessment tool that public sector organization can actually use. Okay, for future research, we see 3 important direction. First, comparative study to demonstrate practical advantage over full-scale COVID-19 in terms of time and research requirements. Second, empirical validation through an actual deployment across multiple public sector organization. And third, longitudinal validation to refine the maturity threshold and scoring calibration using real assessment data. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much, Miss Indah, as a presentation. And so we will now open the for the Q&A session. So if you have any question, maybe from our audience, yeah. Let's please, Stephanus.
Okay.
What's your question?
Okay, thank you, moderator, for change to patient. Introduce. My name is Stefanus Desano from Telkom University. Miss Indah, I have a question. It's about COVID and ITIL as a core issue. My question is, could you explain why exactly keeping them separate is a major problem in the real world? What specific tangible improvements will they actually experience on a day-to-day basis? That's my question.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Stefanus, for asking. Okay. When COVID and ITIL are implemented separately, what happens in practice is a structural disconnect between strategic intent and operational reality. So, at the strategic level, COVID produce governance policies, risk framework, and control objective. Nah, but without operational bridge, this often sit on a shelf without influencing how service are actually delivered day to day. At the operational level, ITIL teams are busy managing incidents, change, and service requests. But the performance data they generate never fit back into strategic governance decision. So to give a concrete example, imagine that imagine a government agency that has a well-documented IT risk policy under COVID. At the same time, the service desk under ITIL is experiencing requiring incidents related to the same system vulnerability. Without integration, the incidents keep recurring and the IT budget continues to be spent reactively rather than proactively. Okay, on a day-to-day basis, um, staff experience this staff experience this as ambiguity over ownership, unclear escalation path, and performance reporting. Then exist in silos. Nah, the continuous value optimization domain of CityGov directly addresses this directly addresses this by creating a closed loop where service performance data uh, performance data where service performance data continuously informs govern decision and uh, govern decision uh, continuously shapes how service are improved. So that is the uh, tangible difference integration makes.
Okay, thank you very much the answer, Miss Indah, and also the good discussion, Mr. Stefanus Jesano. Yeah, okay, the time is up. So thank you very much for your discussion. So we move to our next presenter is, please welcome Mr. Egi Alfansyah. The title paper is Transforming Service Incident Management, a deep dive into ITIL framework best practice. So 10 minutes, the time is yours.
Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Miss Widya. Good afternoon. My name is Agi Alfansyah, and today I will present our paper entitled Beyond Repeatable Level Cultural Resistance and PDCA Disconnect in ITIL V4 Adoption within a Developing Economy. The study focuses on ITIL V4 adoption in the context of incident management within an Indonesia plantation enterprise. Next is the content list. First is the introduction, method, result discussion, and then conclusion. So, research background. ITv4 is the widely used as a global framework for IT service management. However, adopting ITL-v4 require organization maturity, cultural readiness, structure, process discipline in developing economy and non-ICT sector. This is requirement become more complex because organization often prioritize fast operational response over formal documentation. Next is the research gap and then research objective. Previous study mostly discussed at the AI implementation in ICT, financial or telecommunication sector. Empirical study in non-ICT sector, especially in emerging economies, are still limited. Therefore, this study aims to examine how the cultural resistance, organizational constraint, and then PDCA loop disconnect affect ITLV4 adoption in PT XYZ. Next is the method. And then this section explain the research approach used the studies and the research focus on organizational practices and then contextual challenges and qualitative case study method was selected. And then case study content, PTGZ is the geographically dispersed Indonesia plantation enterprise. Azo is not an ICT company. It relies on the IT service to support daily operation. This makes incident management important but also challenging because the company must balance formal ITL producer uh, with fast field-based responses. Next is the research methodology. Data were collected through the semi-structure, interview, and then document analysis. The participant include and the IT service manager, IT engineer, and an application administrator, and then infrastructure personnel. The analysis focus on incident preparation, categorization, initial diagnosis, documentation, and then maturity assessment. Next is the ITV4 framework. The assessment framework was based on the ITV4 incident management indicator. The fulfillment score was calculated by dividing fulfilled criteria by total criteria, the multiplying by 100. This score was used the descriptive tool notes as an official ITL certification metric. Next is the maturity assessment result. The results show the PTXZ fully achieved level 1 initial with a score of the 100% in the process performance. However, level 2 repeatable was only largely achieved with 77 performance management and then 83% in a work product management. This indicated the incident handling is already repeatable but not yet constantly supported by monitoring documentation and then continuous improvement. Next is the finding one, operational agility versus bureaucracy. The first finding is the tension between operational agility and process bureaucracy. PTXZ prioritize rapid incident resolution because business continuity in critical. However, partial approach lead the inconsistent documentation, weak incident history, and then limited learning from previous incident. Next is the key finding 2, PDCL loop disconnect. The second key findings, PTXZ perform well in the plan and do stage, especially in the ticket creation and then fast technical resolution. However, the check and then act state weak because incidents are not always reviewed systematically and lesson learned are not consistently transformed into improvement action. Next is the discussion pragmatic ITL adoption model. Based on the finding, ITL V4 adoption in PTXZ should be understood as a pragmatic adoption process. The process model consists the three dimension, people, process, and then technology. The main idea is that ITL should not be applied rigidly but adapted to local culture, operational urgency, and then geographical constraint. Next is the conclusion and contribution. The study conclude the PTXZ as the active based incident management maturity, but continuous improvement remain limited. The main contribution is the pragmatic ATL adoption perspective for non-ICT organization in emerging economies. Instead of the rigid compliance, organizations should be balance ITL formulation with operational agility. So that conclude my presentation. Thank you for your attention. I welcome any question and comment discussion regarding this study. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Egia. So good in research. And so we move next one about the Q&A session. So please raise hand for any question from our audience. Okay. So if any questions, so I want, okay, to start. Okay, so from Mr. Ian,
Okay.
please, what's your question?
Okay. Can everyone listen for my microphone? Okay.
Yeah,
Is
it's
it my
clear.
microphone? Okay. 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 My name is Yan Mahendra. I have a question to Mr. Egi about the research itself. Why did you choose ITAL program this? Why did I instead of COVID or maybe ISO 20,000? That's the question. Thank you.
Uh, Hello.
You get the question, Mr. Agi?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I get a
okay.
question. Okay, ITL-V4 was selected because the focus on this study is incident management and the service operation improvement. COVID is stronger for the government and the control, uh, while ITL-V4 is more suitable for analyzing operational IT service practices such as incident classification, prioritization, documentation, and then continual improvement. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all from Mr. Egi ya. Mr. Ian, maybe? Okay. Any question from all audience? Okay, so I think it's enough ya. Thank you very much, Mr. Egi and Mr. Ian. Go to discussion. So we move the next one. Our presenter is Miss Sheila Denita Maharani. And the title is When Stress Meet System or Preliminary PLS SAM Validation of Technostress Integration into IS Success Model in SAP ERP Environment. So the time is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Miss. Let me share my PPT. Wait. Okay. Okay. Let me introduce. Okay, let me start the presentation. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great honor to present IKDS 2026. My name is Sheila Denita Maharani from the Information System Telkom University Bandung, Indonesia. I'm presenting this paper together uh, with my co-authors, Pak Muhardi and Ibu Widya Stasya. Our paper title, When Stress Meets System, a preliminary PIS SAM validation of Technostress integration into the IS Success Model in SAP ERP environments. So here it is what I will cover today. We start with the introduction and methods, follow by result and discussion, and finally the conclusion. So let's begin with the introduction first. ERP have become essential infrastructure for modern organizations supporting operational efficiency, cross-functional integration, and data-driven decision-making. SAP is one of the leading ERP vendors global. In fact, it is ranked as the top ERP software in the sourcing procurement category with over 126,000 customers worldwide. Here in Indonesia, ERP accounted for 30% of the country's digital software market in 2025, with SAP as a key enterprise solution. Our study is set in PT XYZ, which is Indonesia state-owned enterprises. What we found through exploratory interviews is that user here face a multi-layer SAP support structure from L0 to L3. Due to limited resources, there is a significant role overlap. People handle both technical and functional responsibilities simultaneously, managing multiple SAP modules at once. This creates a hack overload and a complexity. Does literature say about this then? Alex Thompson said that SAP global rollout is rated as the most difficult ERP transformation, scoring 9.8 out of 10 in the implementation difficulty. Now, Riddick specifically found that SAP complexity influences perceived ease of use and the uncertainty and fear of errors may trigger user frustration. With the Dillon and McLean IS success model, Ali argued that technostress as a whole potentially lowers satisfaction and usage intention. This brings us to our research question, which Tarafdar has already identified 5 technostress, but could specific types of technostress affect the successful implementation of SIP as an implementation information system at PT XYZ or not? That is what we set to examine. Now let's move to the methods. This study uses a quantitative survey methodology implemented as a pilot study. The primary goal of pilot study is evaluate the measurement instrument before full-scale deployment, not to test the hypothesis test. For the data analysis, we use PLSM with Smart PLS4. We chose it because it suits exploratory and predictive research objective. It supports small sample size and it handles complex frameworks with multiple constructs effectively. We have 44 valid responses of operational SAP users at PT XYZ, and 82% have 1 to 2 years SAP experience and 13 have 3 to 5 years. This pilot study focuses exclusively on the measurement model, not the structural. We assess the 3 things, which are indicator reliability, convergent validity, and internal consistency. As a supplementary measure, we also use R-square as an evaluation analysis to compare configuration before and after aiding technostress to quantify its incremental explanatory contribution. Nah, our conceptual model integrates two theoretical tradition. On the left, 3 technostress dimension from Tarafdar, and on the right is 6 constructs from the Dillon McLean. Now, from the Tarafdar technostress, we selected 3, which are TO, TC, and TQ. These are most directly relevant to ERP environments where workload demands are high, learning curves are steep, and systems are continuously updated. From the Dillon McLean, we include SQ, IQ, and SVQ as a quality determinants which drive system use and user satisfaction, which together contribute the net benefits. We position the technostress dimension as external antecedents to the DM quality construct. In the total, the model has a 9 construct yielding 44 questionnaire items using a 4-point Likert scale. So let's look to the result in discussion, starting with indicator reliability. The majority of our 44 indicator exceeded the 0.7 threshold. However, for indicators initially fell below, which are TC1, TC2, TC3, and TO4. Following here, indicators between 0.4 and 0.7 may be removed. Their removal improves convergent validity and reliability. After evaluation, we removed TC1 and TO4, but TC2 and TC3 were retained because removing them did not further improve construct equality. And after refinement, all 9 constructs achieve acceptable reliability and validity. We have CA range from 0.7 to 0.9. CR range from 0.8 to 0.9, and all within the range are 0.7 to 0.9 benchmark. And AVE cross all construct exceeded 0.5, that confirm each contract explains more than half the variance in its indicators. So now as a supplementary evaluation measure, we compare R-square value across the 3 model configuration, which are standalone DM model and DM model with initial technostress and the refined model. 3 key findings stand out. The first one is net benefits and user satisfaction remain stable. The DM baseline already explains these outcomes very well, and technostress adds a little here. And the second one is system use shows the clearest the technostress signal. It's R-square gain of 3.1 percentage points. This suggests that technology-related stress may influence how users actually interact with and engage with SAP day to day. Third is the most striking finding, which is system quality R-square is only 0.026, which is this imply that users cognitively separate their personal stress from their evaluation of the system itself. Even when overloaded or uncertain, they may still perceive SAP as reliable and capable. This is consistent with technostress theory, which are technostress primarily drive emotional and behavioral outcomes, not cognitive quality judgment. So importantly, system use R-square value remains stable between initial and refined models. And the findings carry both theoretical and practical implication. Theoretically, the results support extending the DM model to include technostress as a user-related antecedent, a dimension that has been under-theorized in ERP success research. The near-zero R-square for system quality also points to a genuine theoretical boundary, which is the complexity appears to operate in the behavioral emotional domain and separate from cognitive system evaluation. For practitioner in PTXYZ, the mission is to clear, yeah. Do not rely solely on the technical system improvements. Even a high quality system can produce stress, disengaged users. Organizations should define clear role boundaries to reduce the techno overload, implement proactive change management during SAP updates to reduce techno uncertainty, and design structure training programs for users managing multimodal responsibilities. And let me now bring everything together in our conclusion. Okay, this pilot studies accomplished three things. First, the instrument is validated. All 9 construct met reliability and convergent validity threshold after indicator refinement. Second, model stability is confirmed. R-square values were unchanged post-refinement, confirming that we remove noise, not signal. Third, preliminary directional signal emerges. Technostrats adds incremental explanatory value for system use, warranting full-scale structural testing. So, 6-direction guide future research is scaling up to larger and more diverse sample for structural hypothesis and formal model comparison using effect size and predictive relevance, and expanding to all 5 technostress dimensions in outdoor environments, and investigating mediators and moderators such as self efficacy and training effectiveness, and also longitudinal design, and also unpacking the system quality gap. So technostress shapes how users with ERP system, how users engage with ERP system. ERP success research must treat user psychology not its peripheral concern, but its core variable. This pilot provides a validated foundation to do exactly that. So thank you so much for this presentation.
Okay, my time is up ya. Okay, thank you very much, Miss Sayla, as our presenters, our research, do your research. So we move next one about the Q&A session. So please raise hand. Yeah. So from Mr. Ananta, please, what's your question?
Okay, thank you for the opportunity, moderator. I have a question about the small sample size of this paper, about around 45 respondent, right? So how do this finding affect the robustness and of the study, and what the factor might explain the limited variance explain in the system quality? This is my question. Thank you.
Okay. Can I answer it directly? Okay. Thank you for the question, Mr. Ananda. Do you mean relative small sample size of 44 respondents, right? So, why is it very suitable for this research? Because, yeah, this study was intentionally designed for a pilot study, yeah, focusing on measurement model validation rather than hypothesis testing or structural testing. Since PLSM is suitable for exploratory research with small samples, the sample size is acceptable for our objective. Second is the low R-square of the system quality is actually interesting finding, I think. It indicates that technostress dimension explain very little variance in users' perceptions of SAP technical quality. This suggests that users may separate their personal stress experience from their evaluation of the system itself. So even when they feel overloaded or uncertain, they can still perceive SAP as reliable and functional. So this finding also consistent with prior technosource literature, which I provide in my paper also, which suggests that technosource more strongly affects emotional and behavioral outcomes the cognitive evaluation of system characteristics. So therefore, rather than being a weakness, the low R square is potentially important theoretical insight, I think, that warrants further investigation with a larger small sample. So I think all because of that, we have to continue our research in structural study. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Ananta, is enough for you?
Yeah, I get her
Thank
point,
you.
and it's enough for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So interesting discussion, yeah, Mr. Sheila and also Mr. Ananta. So we move next. The last one presenter is Mr. Alfian Shah Rizky Hidayat. The title is about the understanding generative AI adoption in education through the UTAUT framework assistant review. So the time is yours. Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
The team. I'm
Oh,
part of the Mr.
it's changed,
Alifiansyah
yeah.
team, so I'm going to
Oh, okay,
represent
okay.
because
Okay, it's
he
okay.
is on a meeting.
Okay,
Okay,
it's fine.
let me share my screen. Wait. Okay, so okay. Good afternoon, honorable chairs, distinguished guests, and fellow researcher. My name is Yan Mahendra Putra. I'm representing the Information System Department at Telkom University. It is an honor to be here at IKDIS 2026, along with my team, Mr. Alifiansa Ariski Hidayat, Mrs. Rita Ayu Ros Priscilia, no, Mrs. Nur Azizah Rosidah, and Miss Ramadhani Fanfa Fozia. I am excited to present our study titled Advancing Generative AI Adoption in Education, extending the UTAUT framework. We have organized our presentation today based on the structure, and we are currently witnessing a massive transformation in education. Generative AI offers incredible opportunities for personalized learning, and in Indonesia, it has the potential to dramatically improve the quality and efficiency of the learning process. However, this technology is a double-edged sword. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. I repeat. So unsupervised use introduces risks like AI hallucination, bias, and the potential erosion of independent critical thinking skills. This is why we see such divergent responses among stakeholders, from enthusiasm to deep skepticism. Yeah, there are so many variables here, and our researcher addresses this by asking what truly drives users to adopt Gen AI. Found that traditional adoption models are no longer sufficient. Let's dive into the finding. So there is the content list. There are introduction, method, result, and discussion. To understand the context of our study, we must look at the rapid integration of Gen AI in our educational settings. Integration of Gen AI in educational context has advanced rapidly, particularly in supportive adaptive and personalized teaching. In Indonesia, adoption of Gen AI has the potential to improve both the efficiency and quality of the learning process. However, as shown in our research, this potential comes with significant challenges. Gen AI offers benefit but still faces challenges such as hallucination bias and reduced critical thinking when not guided by the structured teaching. Unsupervised use of Gen AI increase the risk of fragmented understanding, as students who rely entirely on AI-generated assistance may miss the valuable opportunities to develop independent logical reasoning and problem-solving skills. The emergence of Gen AI in the educational environment also generates different responses among stakeholders. Some are enthusiastic, while others are skeptical, as I said before. Therefore, to move beyond this divide, a more in-depth investigation is required to determine the factors that influence and develop a guideline in adopting Gen AI in the educational context. The study conducts a systematic literature review of research examining user behavior towards Gen AI in education settings. Ultimately, we aim to bridge the gap between traditional technology models and the probabilistic realistic of AI-driven education. So these our two research questions. There are two factors here in the research question. The question one is which factors in UTAUT can explain users' behavior in utilizing Gen AI within educational context? And question two is which factors beyond UTAUT influence the acceptance of Gen AI in educational context? Our methods, this systematic literature review is conducted on selected and peer-reviewed journal using Prisma guideline. The search research was chatbot or GPT, and the second keyword we are using adoption or intention or acceptance, and the third keyword is academic or education. So there will be so many, and will be explained in the next slide. Inclusion and exclusion criteria. Yeah, the inclusion is article comes from peer-reviewed research journal. Article must come from the Scopus Index journal, and article is must publish in between 2021 until 2025. Because the AI itself is come from mostly in 2021, so we put on the 2021. The exclusion is article must be in English, article must be available online, and article must focus on generative AI used in academic context. There are like so many databases. We found that there are 5,043. There are that found in our research and our study, and until we filter, screen, excluded, and the remaining is 24. A total of 24 selected articles were extracted, categorized, and synthesized. A frequency analysis was conducted to identify factors including its extension, and we are evaluated the theoretical implication of each findings in selected article. Okay, we are moving forward. There will be so many variables here. There are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 variables here, but I'm going to make this quick because the time is limited. So what drives Gen AI adoption? The first is Gen AI adoption is influenced by a combination of psychological, social, and technological factors. Core construct from the UTAUT model consistently demonstrate a significant impact of user behavior, and integration with other models such as TAM, TPB, and SCT, and external variables is necessary for a comprehensive understanding. Okay, the first one is performance expectancy. Let me look at the picture again. There are 22 articles emerged as the most influential factors. So, however, some research found that PE, performance expectancy, are insignificant and lose its influence when its institution provide direct support of use of Gen AI. In contrast, PE tends to dominate in informal learning context, where students rely on the performance of Gen AI to support learning. Thus, PE can be interpreted as a context-dependent factor which interacts with the other variable particularly. Yeah, so performance expectancy is the key factors of the AI itself. So the next is social influence. There are 14 articles. The second biggest one, second biggest of the variables. There are 14 articles. Next is 13 articles. It's about facilitating conditions. There are 13 articles. And then 12 articles for effort expectancy in several studies. And then there are hedonic motivation. There are 10 articles. The price value itself is like, and there are like three variables that may be so low in this conversation. There are price value, habit, and personal innovativeness are significant in limited studies suggesting a weaker empirical support. Yeah. But if we take a look at the take a look closer, there are contexts. So this reason why we still included in this conversation. But among 8 variables, there are like two variables that emerges as the most prominent extension variable. They are excluded from the 8 variables. There are trust and perceived risk, TR and PR. Trust is confidence in the reliability, credibility, and security of AI system, and perceived risk is concerns regarding potential adverse outcomes of AI usage, such as privacy, violation, and misinformation or misuse. The trust itself is, as I mentioned before, is a system reliability, transparency, and data protection. And perceived risk is reflects user concern regarding potential negative outcome associated with AI utilization. So this is the overall diagram. There are 5 key variables, and then trust and perceived risk to explain the uncertainty effect of Gen AI. The managerial implication, there are 3 findings of this finding study. Provide practical guidance at the strategic level. Gen AI adoption should be treated as a socio-technical, and operation instituted can follow as a 3-phase approach as below. There is our conclusion. Yeah, unlike traditional.
Okay, sorry, the time is
Yeah,
up,
yeah.
Mr. Ian. Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much from your presentation. So we move next one to the Q&A section. Please raise hand or then. Okay, so from Mr. Egi. What's your question, Mr. Egi?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Miss Widya. My question is the why core variable of the UTA UT2 like habit or the price value didn't include in your purpose model? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Egi. Thank you for the questions. Okay, let me process. Okay, habits appears less influential since its usage is highly task dependent and exploratory rather than routinized. Right now, generative AI, yeah, we call it generative AI, involves dynamic interaction patterns that vary across academic tasks, limiting the formation of stable habitual behavior. We can see the biggest, maybe the lowest, the PV is not used in this model due to combination of generative AI services, where we call freemium access model significantly reduce cost sensitive sensitivity among student. I apologize. Thus, adoption are less driven by economic consideration. That's why this model not included those variable. There are like three variable low, like when the PV is included. We also didn't include the personal innovativeness from UTAU 3 as early stage adoption of Gen AI is not exclusively driven by individual traits, but increasingly influenced by external factors such as institutional endorsement and then the accessibility and peer usage. Thus, innovativeness of using Gen AI is usually from other factors. So that's the answer, Mr. Eki, maybe. Thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ian and Mr. Egi. So, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes all of our presentation for the online parallel session in room A4. On behalf ICADES 2026. I would like to thank you all our presenters for their exceptional contribution and insights. So, as well as participant, your engagement and the tour preparing the question. So before officially close this session, I'd like to invite all presenter and participant to turn on your camera, please, for our virtual group photo session. Okay. So you ready? Okay. So 3, 2, and 1. Okay, freestyle, maybe. Yeah. 3, 2, and 1. Okay. Once again. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, thank you very much, presenter. So, yeah, I have a wonderful day, I think, yeah. And wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you so
warahmatullahi
much,
wabarakatuh.
Miss, and
Yeah,
also
welcome.
BIC.
My pleasure, yeah.